All right. It's good to have everybody here in the GRIP-Birkman Coaches Cafe. We're going to do something unique, a little bit different than we usually do in our coaching cafe. This is something that we did at our gathering. So those that were at the gathering experienced this, and you probably experienced this in other coaching environments. There's nothing, I started to say magical, but there's nothing deep and unique about this, but I think it can be very powerful. We're going to introduce you to a coaching triads. There's Les. So we're going to introduce you to coaching triads. And what we'll do is to put you into Zoom rooms, and you'll have 15 minutes no, I'm sorry about that. You'll have 10 minutes for one person to coach another person and one person to observe, 5 minutes to debrief and say what went well, what would I do, improve on, what would I do differently next time. That's a WIN, an acronym, W-I-N, what went well, what would I need to improve, and what would I do differently next time. And you may not get to all three of those questions. And so everybody will have the chance to be coached, coach another, and to observe. All right. So the observer will lead the 5-minute debrief just by asking questions, but it's not a time necessarily to critique. This is what you did wrong. It's a time to work on the positives and what can be improved. So this handout that's in your chat room, there's a 2-page handout that we gave at the gathering, is triad groups, coaching through triads, and it's in the context of how can we improve as GRIP-Birkman coaches. This handout will be added to our coaching manual, coach training manual. And so what will take place is we're going to encourage people. One of the biggest things we're trying to address is people come to the 3-day coach training. They really love it. They get into it. You've heard the stories. They walk away saying, I think this is a great tool. And then they begin to forget it and they get busy doing other things, and they don't really work with it enough to make it a useful tool. So this is one attempt to try to help them to use the tool afterwards. We'll encourage them with this handout to get with 2 other people on a monthly basis, every weekly basis, at least for a 3 to 6 month period afterwards, and be coached, coach, and observe somebody else coaching. All right. Does that make sense? Any questions that you have, particularly those that weren't at the gatherings? Wayne?
Where is the handout?
It's in the chat room. If you go to the chat down at the bottom toolbar, it says chat, open that up, and it should be there. Have other people found it?
Yeah, Jay, you added it before other people joined the group. Possibly we might need to add it again just to be sure.
Okay, all right. I'll add it again. So as I try to talk, which is not very...
I can do that. Go ahead.
Possible. Okay, thank you. So the principle behind this is that a lot of people will say, well, I need a good hour and a half to coach somebody well through their GRIP-Birkman. And I agree with that as far as if it's your first time. But actually there's studies in pure coaching that you can accomplish more in a 20-minute focused coaching conversation than you can in an hour or an hour and a half. And so this is very, very short with 10 minutes. So let me just repeat the concept. When you get into your rooms, one person volunteers to be coached, one person volunteers to coach, and one person is observing. Dive right into the coaching, and here's how I suggest you start. so that we don't have to go through all the niceties, and we all know one another to some degree in this coaching cafe before, is the coachee starts by focusing on their need stress in the Birkman map. Share, here's one expectation that I've learned about myself that I need around me, that I expect to have in order to function the best. This is what I've learned about myself. And this is what may happen. I may go into this stress behavior if I don't have that expectation met. So just start by sharing what you have learned about need, stress, particularly for your personality. Apply this to you. It's a coaching. And then the coach just becomes curious. Just become curious of exploring. Well, how does that work? Where do you see that? All right. And the observer needs to keep the time. Larry can give reminders of 1 minute to change. You'll be on your own to change. 10 minutes, 10 minutes to coach, 5 minutes to debrief, and you'll do that 3 times around. Everybody's back. And so we just have a few seconds here, a few minutes. So be brief in your comment, but I would like for you to give feedback on what did you observe or gain from the process, not the content of your coaching session, but the process of it. And the triad process. What did you notice?
This is great. I mean, you're coaching, but you're doing it with people who understand coaching, and the feedback's just amazing.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? Yeah, and just that little win model. I got insight that I hadn't had before. I mean, I don't know that it was completely new, but when we had a little bit more time because we only had 2, but I got some great insight, and it was just reminds me the power of the tool and the power of coaching.
Well, and I think the process is a great developmental tool, and a great, like, one of the things that you often do in developmental work is scenarios. And this is actually a really easy way to create scenarios for people, to get them talking, asking questions, getting immediate feedback. So the thing I'm taking away from this is just the need in my coaching community here to start using this on a regular basis as a way of kind of driving everybody's skills and comfort level forward.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thank you, Les.
By this, do you mean using the video format, or using the GRIP-Birkman tool?
No, by this I mean using the triads.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just speaking of the process that we were just in. So yeah, using the I've got 7 or 8 GRIP-Birkman coaches on our staff, getting them together, doing some triads, and driving this into the kind of another developmental track for us.
Yeah. One of the things I've observed with coaching triads is oftentimes the content is not that rich, and just having the conversation teed up the way it was today using the GRIP-Birkman language, I think it made the coaching triad that much more effective, and was more quickly useful than if we just kind of teed up, let's say a typical coaching triad session that was kind of really, really open-ended.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask, has anybody done coaching triads doing a team build? I'm going to be doing I've got a Christian school admin staff I'm going to be doing a team build with in a couple of weeks. And actually thought about maybe trying to employ this, because one of the things that's nice to do is to create a coaching culture. Would this be something that could be done in that?
Oh yeah, very much so. Creating the coaching culture particularly. And it's so simple that people, I think they feel like, oh, I can do this. you know.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think it's really good. And this is not original to me, and it's probably not original to Keith Webb either, but I got this from Keith Webb. He does this in his training,
Right.
with triad coaching. So yeah, I think so, Wayne. We need to bring this to a close. So any other observations or constructive criticism, it would be better if.
I think for me, it was a very supportive experience, being a novice and, not sure I'm asking the right questions. It was helpful to get the feedback and say, yes, you had some very important questions. And the process is great. I could use this more often. I could do this more often. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I would encourage us then, Wayne, is to take a step to reach out to coaches you know and create a triad maybe every month. You can use video conferencing, or particularly new coaches that you know of that have gone through GRIP-Birkman and might like to have a triad. We're all experienced, and we can create this environment for newly trained coaches. So I'd encourage you to do that. I know in your busy schedule, but an hour and a half a month might be doable. Okay, Larry.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for leading us today. The response to our triad coaching at the celebration was phenomenal. And as I was dropping in on the rooms today, I could see that people were doing a good job. The timekeepers were doing a good job. That's another thing of having that third person to watch the clock for you and to give you that warning. That was, people were observing that even before I gave them the warnings on the chat. So that was really, you're all to be commended for that. And I have one question for the group before we sign off, and that is our first Wednesday in January is January 2nd. And some of you might still be celebrating or with families. And so either we would postpone it until the next Wednesday, or if everybody feels that it would be better, we'll not have a coaches cafe on in January and not pick back up until February. And I'd like to get some feedback from you folks real quickly before we make that decision.
I'm fine having one in January.
Yeah.
Same here.
I would just push it a week.
Push it to January 9th?
I would say let's go ahead and have one in January and just push it a week to get away from the holidays. Let us get back settled in.
Great. So everybody should be fully into their New Year's resolutions by January the 9th, and we'll put that on the calendar for that time. You'll get a reminder. Jay will help us to send out reminders to everybody that we'll meet together. Make a New Year's resolution to join us again for the GRIP-Birkman Coaches Cafe on January 9th at the same time. And thank you, everybody, for your tremendous participation. Just keep on doing what you can to build unity in the body of Christ so that more people will know Jesus. Lord bless you all, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.